Coming up next.
When I came into the church, my purpose was to serve. The first thing that they had me do was they asked me to clean the bathrooms. Then eventually me and the evangelist, we had like a really long conversation one night and we really clicked. Eventually she asked me, she said, "Hey, can you help me with something after church?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm thinking it's gonna be something at the building." But basically, she wanted me to help her on her personal job.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Coming Out of the Hedges. My name is Katina Shoni Freeman. I am your host today. Coming Out of the Hedges is my platform where I help spiritually wounded individuals to heal and to discover their identity and purpose through the lens of Christ without the embarrassment and shame that typically comes with the healing process. So if you have been spiritually wounded, if you've been church hurt, misled by your church leaders, and you find yourself just kind of out, don't know what to do, and you are still in a place of unforgiveness and hurt, this is exactly where you need to be. And also, you can contact me at the end of this podcast or anytime via social media. My hashtag is going to be Katina Shoni Freeman. And then also on my website at katinashonifreeman.com. So today I am joined by a special guest, Miss Kayla Mosely. Hi, Kayla.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm happy to
Good.
be here.
Good. So how are you feeling about this?
Um, I'm nervous, but I'm ready
Okay.
because and it's not even to hurt people or anything like that. It's to let people know the signs of when you're in a church that may not be for you.
Okay.
Because I don't
Okay.
want anybody to go through what I went through.
Right. And I have heard your story. So you and I, so I guess it's important for our audience to know that you and I don't know each other personally. We've never met before, other than just speaking last weekend for about an hour and a half to talk about you coming onto the podcast, right? And
Yes.
so we met via TikTok.
Yeah.
So, what about that TikTok reel made you want to reach out and to come on to this platform to share your story?
So I listened to each part of your testimony, and it was very similar to mine. And I said, wow, I've been wanting to tell my story and tell, what happened to me. Um, but I was afraid. But when I saw you, I said, okay, well, this is her actual show and it's about, church hurt. So I said, okay, well, let me reach out to her because I've been ready to share my story for a while.
Well, I am glad that you did, and I'm glad that you chose to do it at this time because I do feel like that it's important because a lot of people are like you. They are afraid or they feel intimidated, like there's going to be some type of repercussions or whatever from the people in the ministry or whomever who caused the hurt. And so they do run out into the hedges, which is why this is called, coming out of the hedges, because the scripture tells us to go out into the highways and the hedges and to compel them to come back in. And so that is the very reason for this platform. And I am so appreciative that you chose it to come on and to tell your story. So we're gonna go into a little bit, and I have some note cards, Kayla, because
Okay.
there was so much, and I'm like, okay, we got to get this all in here. Um,
Right.
so we're just gonna go through, and I've not done the note cards before with a guest, but we're gonna do this today with you. And if there's anything that you want to add, or whatever, just be led by the spirit to do, to speak as you please. Okay. And
Okay.
again, we won't name any specific churches or ministries because, again, it's not to expose the ministry, but it's really to just help people who are out there who are hurting, right?
Right.
Okay. And so let me ask you this before we go into this, because I think it's important for people to understand this. You are currently, so this what we're going to talk about, this is still kind of fresh, meaning that the things that we're going to talk about today happened pretty recently, fairly recently. So within the past year or so, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it started a little bit before that, but it finally got to a breaking point and a separation point maybe about a year ago, right?
Yes.
Okay. And
I
I say that that's fresh because for me, it was almost 20 years. It's been, that long ago. So that's
yeah.
really recent. And with that, probably is it safe to say that you probably have not healed completely from those wounds?
No, I haven't.
Okay. And I think that yeah, because it took me a while to. Spiritual wounds, they are hard to heal from. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of prayer. It takes forgiveness, being intentional about it. But we'll get into all of that. And so let's talk about, first of all, what is your religious affiliation?
Well, I identify as an Israelite, a Christian Israelite, whichever way you want to look at it or call it. That means that I believe that Black people, that we are the descendants of Christ. But I still read the Holy Bible. I still sing the songs. I still sing Jesus. But I have the same beliefs as Christians. I just believe that we are the true people of God. That's all.
Okay. And then how long have you been, so with that, there's salvation with that, right? So you still believe in
Yes.
salvation. How long
Oh,
have you
yeah.
been saved?
I accepted Christ at the end of 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at that time, were you married yet at that time?
No, I was dating a gentleman, and he is actually the one that led me to the Lord. So
Okay.
he led me to him, and then I can't like ever pinpoint the date. I just know it was the end of 2022 when something changed in my life.
Got you. Okay. And so your previous marriage, because you are now divorced, right?
Yes,
Okay. And you are currently in Pennsylvania,
yes,
correct? But when
yes,
this happened, it happened at a ministry in Texas. And
yes.
you and your husband, your ex husband, you guys joined this ministry together. And what drew you to this specific ministry?
So I was looking around the area, for a church that was, preaching truth, preaching the word of God. And so I went on a couple different websites and I looked at, different um, sermons and things from different pastors. And so when I saw this pastor, I brought it to the husband at that time and I said, I want to go visit this church. Now, mind you, I was already a part of another ministry that the husband wasn't a part of. So I had a leader, I had an apostle, but I wanted a church where I could go into physically and serve along with, my spouse. So that's what made me pick the church. I went on their website. They believed in the Holy Spirit. They believed in baptism. They believe, in everything that I believe. And I said, well, let's go check them out. And so we
Okay.
went.
Okay. And how did your husband feel about this church, or your ex husband?
Um, so the first thing that he noticed, and I noticed too, that when we went there, nobody was there. Well, okay, it probably was maybe one other member that was there, but it was
Okay.
just the pastor, the first lady, their daughter, and maybe one other member.
Okay.
And when we went in the church, we sat down, we took our seat or whatever, and almost immediately once, we did praise and worship and everything, she immediately, at the end of service, prophesied to us. And she told us that, we've been through a lot. And she said, within a year from now, God is going to bless you all. And he didn't really like that. Now, me, I love the fivefold. I mean, I love the prophetic. I love all of that. It wasn't that I accepted what she said, but it was nice to hear a word from the Lord regarding what was going on with us at that time in our marriage. So at
Okay.
the end of church that day, she asked us if we wanted to join. And so me and him were a little hesitant about that. Like, okay, she's prophesying to us, and now she's asking us, do we want to join? So that was our first initial contact in the church, our first day.
Okay. So the first day you go, okay, so there was only one other family there besides you guys, right?
From what I remember, I know the pastor was there, the first lady was there, their daughter, the evangelist, I believe was there, and I think it was maybe one or two other members.
Okay. And
The
then
church maybe.
typically, what would you say was the church membership like? Like how many were did they have 100 members, 200 members, 1,000 members? At this church, and did you guys just go on a date where maybe it was during COVID and people just weren't showing up, or what was like the normal, like what was their membership?
The church probably seated, I would say, about 50 people. So it was a small, church. We
Okay.
went the last week of 2021. So it was
Okay.
like, like December, like the end of December when we went. And
Okay.
nobody was really there. But typically it was a small church anyway. So even once I was going, consistently month after month, there would be times where where it would be full, like on family day or something like that, but most of the time it'd probably be no more than 10 to 15 people.
Okay. And so you had a family who was actually like in leadership at
Hmm.
this ministry. So it's safe to
Yes.
say that they were the ones who, started this ministry. You had the husband who was the pastor, the wife or first lady who was the prophetess, and then the
Hmm.
daughter who was the evangelist, right?
Yes.
So you have a shepherd, you have the voice, the one who is the mouthpiece for God, the prophetess, and you have the evangelist, the one who's bringing the souls back,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay, so we'll probably come back to that. That's interesting to me. Okay, so now tell me, what was your relationship with because you formed a personal relationship with the evangelist who was the daughter, right?
Yes.
Okay, so give us a little background and tell us how that happened, because I think that in order for our viewers, for the audience to understand how the church hurt happened, they need to know the history. As much as you can give us. How did you connect with her immediately? Like, what was that connection with the? This would be with the evangelist, the daughter.
Right. So I would say probably after about my third visit, maybe after my fourth visit, I'm not sure. But after church, the evangelist came to me because she was my age. She came to me. She was a little bit younger, and she asked me because she had my number, and she was like, you seem like you really cool or whatever. She was like, let's talk, and that's how the initial contact started. So I when I came into the church, my purpose was to serve, because like I said, I was a part of another ministry, but they were in another state, so it was just online. But I wanted to serve God. I wanted to serve in the church. So when I went in the church, I went in there with this mindset of, okay, I'm ready to help. I'm ready to help wherever I need to help at. So um the first thing that they had me do was they asked me to clean the bathrooms. And it was a small church. It was a female bathroom and a male bathroom. So I said, sure, no problem. I mean, I was in the military for 12 years. I mean, cleaning up a bathroom is nothing. So that was the first thing I did. Then eventually, me and the evangelist, we had like a really long conversation one night, and we really clicked. You know, she had been married twice before. I was on my second marriage, and we were just sharing our stories. So eventually she asked me, she said, "Hey, can you help me with something after church?" And I said, "Yeah, you know, I'm thinking it's gonna be something at the building." Now I don't remember exactly how she delivered it to me, but basically she wanted me to help her on her personal job. Now I felt like, you know, at this point in my life, I was ready to make friends. I wanted friends that were, you know, filled with the Holy Spirit. You know, I wanted friends that were like minded like myself. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, I'll help her, you know, because I'm on disability. So I'm like, you know, I could take, you know, maybe 1 or 2 days, a couple hours a week and go help her on her job. Um, and anytime I would help her, she would give me $25. And this would be maybe for about 2 or 3 hours. But then eventually she started giving me clothes slash food. She was doing this little diet and she would give me food, you know, and clothes. So that's how me and her started establishing a relationship.
Okay. And you were like good friends with her at one point, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you
Yes.
guys were
Very good
you
friend.
were friends and you considered her to be a friend to you and you're bonding over these different things. And so at some point she connects with your family, your husband's family or your ex-husband's family, and you guys become like real family, right?
So, okay. Um, her daughter wanted me to be her godmom. Now, this was after I was going to the church, maybe for about maybe 2.5, 3 months.
Okay.
So there was a bond right there. So she was single, and my ex brother in law, I knew overall he was a decent guy, you know, and I figured, hey, they might like each other. Now the ex husband, he really wasn't feeling, you know, introducing them. But I was like, well, let's just, you know, I'm like, because I feel like the Holy Spirit is really leading me to introduce them. They're both single, you know. She's a good mother, you know. He's a decent guy. Let's just see where it goes. So I introduced them June 2022. Matter of fact, June 25th, 2022. They started dating. And then he ended up moving in with her, but they didn't want us to tell anybody because they didn't want to make her look bad because she was an evangelist, you know, the shacking up deal. Well, anyway, they got married in August. So they met in June and got married in August. And then that's how, you know, I guess you could say we became family or whatever.
Okay. And so, in the course of that time, so now you are family with her, you are
Mm-hmm.
her daughter's godmother, okay? And then, because there was a time where the pastor was kind of out of the picture for a little bit because he had some illness or something, right?
Yes, this was at the beginning.
Okay, and so it was the prophetess, and I'm having to look at my notes because all these titles or whatever they're kind of confusing me. So the prophetess and the first lady. What was your
Mm-hmm.
relationship with her at this time that you are, connecting with her daughter? You and her daughter are friends now. You're helping, in the ministry. So you're cleaning the church, right? You're helping the daughter on her personal job, which is outside of serving in the church. But then there were some things that you were also doing in the church as well. So tell us, you know what? Tell us about the incident that happened when it came to your birthday.
Oh Lord. Okay. Oh, and also once I joined the church, 3 months into me starting, I was teaching children's church as well. So I'm helping
Okay.
on the job, I'm doing children's church, and I'm cleaning the bathroom every other weekend.
Okay.
So the situation with my birthday. I'm not really big on celebrations. I've never been, even before I accepted Christ. Even though I have Israelite beliefs, I just don't believe in celebrating. Now, some of that is me being codependent. So, codependent people, we will sacrifice ourselves for the happiness of other people. Codependent people don't like acknowledgement. We don't like celebrations. We don't like to get praise or none of that stuff. And what I told the ex-husband was, I said, look, for my 40th birthday, I want to do some survival training, or I want to have a 40-year-old photo shoot. Now, this is what I told him, months before my birthday came up. So I don't know how this got intertwined, but all of a sudden I was like, well, maybe I'll have a party. And then I kind of said, well, nah, I don't really want a party. So at this point, he was going to the church. And at this point, we were family. And so I decided, I said, you know what? I don't want a party. I'll just go to dinner and that's it. And so I had told her that. And she was like, nah, you're going to have a party. I said, I don't want a party. Like, that's not me. I don't want to be looked at and all that stuff. And she was like, well, I'm big on birthdays. And, you're my daughter's godmom. And, you're a member of our church. And now you're my sister-in-law. Like, you're going to have this party. I'm like, I don't want the party. So anyway, so one day, I guess the mother-in-law, my ex-husband's mother, which was now her mother-in-law, I guess the mother-in-law called her and was, I guess, maybe complaining or voicing her frustration because I said I didn't want a party. Then the ex-husband called her and was talking to her about me not wanting to have a party. Now, at this time, I haven't talked to her that whole day. And I'm just chilling. I'm just being me, doing my little puzzles. I'm having a good day. So I hear all this stuff about them talking to her. I'm like, let me just call her and see, what's going on. So I'll call her and I'm like, hey, what's up? And she was like, you know what? You've been calling me. No, she was like, the mother-in-law done called me. Your husband done called me. My mother has called me. The first lady was calling her. She was like, y'all are stressing me out. She was like, I'm a newlywed. And she was like, I never met anybody like you before. She was like, I don't understand this. I mean, she was like really going in on me. And then she hung up on me. And see, that's how I know God is a deliverer. Come on. Because, normally if somebody would do that, I'm done with you. And I just didn't understand, like, how can you get this upset because I don't want a party? Like, it's my birthday. On my birthday, I should be able to do what I want to do. If I want to sit in the house in my PJs all day, it's my birthday.
Right.
And she got upset about it. So next thing I know, the first lady is calling me and she's telling me that basically me not wanting a party is pride. And so she was like, in ministry, you're going to have, you're going to get celebrated. And she was like, that's a spirit of pride. And you need to go back and apologize to Tasha and your brother-in-law about not wanting the party and all this and that. And I'm just like, why do I have to apologize for something I don't want? And so at that point, I felt pressured, and then I talked to my apostle and she was like, well, if your first lady says it's pride, then it's pride. I said, okay, I give in. We can have the party. So we had the party. Now, one of the big issues with that was after the party, I was telling people what she did, like how she went off on me, but I was over it, but I wasn't, you know what I'm saying? It was just like, I was trying to understand how was that right for her to go off on me. That was one of the biggest first arguments that we had because she was like, you're going around telling everybody that I went off on you. And she was right. I shouldn't have did that. I shouldn't have been asking different, telling different people about that. But I was just so shocked. I'm like, how can you do me like this? And I've been nothing but nice to you. I've never
So you
talked
were
crazy.
offended. And the reason why I wanted you to tell that part of it, because typically before there is a church hurt there is some offense that happens. Okay. And so you were offended by her actions. You were offended by the prophetess or the first lady, and her
Mm-hmm.
calling you and calling you prideful. And that is going to be what's going to give way for the hurt to, or the spiritual wound to actually come into place. So that's the reason why I wanted you to give us a little background about that. Okay, so you are now, you're serving in three different capacities, and then there is some other things that they've wanted you to do as well in this, in this little ministry that they have. They're wanting you to now be events planner and all of these other things, right? So pulling
Yes.
on you a whole lot. Okay, so now let us talk a little bit now about your this ministerial license. So you mentioned your apostle whom you had, okay, who
Mm-hmm.
was actually in your life before you and your husband or your ex-husband joined this ministry, because the
Mm-hmm.
apostle is female and he didn't believe in sitting under the authority of female leadership, right?
Right.
Okay. And so you have this, but you've kept this connection with her. And
Yes.
she is basically, telling you, she's not telling you to go against this ministry, or whatever, or under your leadership. She's telling you the right thing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So she is still training you, and you go into this ministerial training with your apostle who is outside of the church that you are now a member of, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you go to who was it that you said something to about that first? Was it the first lady or the evangelist?
I don't really remember how it first came up, but I did tell the first lady specifically that my apostle told me that within a year, we had a date set aside that she was going to be licensing different people, and I was one of the ones that was going to be licensed. Now, when I told the first lady this, I told her this like in May, because that's when the apostle told, different people they were going to be getting licensed. So I told her this, and she just, just regular conversation. So fast forward a few months later, um, there was a situation that had came up, and the pastor found out that I was going to be getting licensed by my apostle, and he said, "Well, I didn't know about that, you know." And so he said, "Well, you can't be a part of two ministries." Now, mind you, I've never been in church. Okay, this is the first time in my late 30s actually being a part of a congregation. So I didn't know how these things worked. So when I was talking to him, I was kind of offended, because I'm just like, how would you not know that I'm going to be getting licensed, within the next year or so? Because I already told the first lady. So at the end of that situation, I asked her. I said, I don't understand why you didn't, tell the pastor. And she was like, well, I didn't think it was a big deal. So that was another issue, because I felt like, how could you just downplay what I'm telling you that's important to me, serving God in that capacity, and now you're saying you don't think it was a big deal. But now the pastor is like, now this is after months of me serving, and we go into the food kitchens and serving, we doing all this stuff in the community, and now you're telling me that I have to decide which ministry I want to be a part of. Like, this could have happened months ago, and it would have been easier for me to break off, you know. But I want to add this one thing. The ex-husband's my ex-brother-in-law, he the mother of his son died. So from 10 months old to almost 3 years old, I raised him. I mean, I'm talking about bathing, caring for him, feeding him. We all lived together. Now, when he met her, that was another problem, because she felt like, okay, so one day I went over and I asked about, I said, okay, so what is he learning, in school and stuff like that. She didn't like that. She told me that I acted like I was my brother in law's real brother, and that she didn't understand why I was being so involved. And I'm
So
like,
when
I
you say
raised him.
she, hang on, Kayla. So when you say she, just so the audience can keep up, because I know who you're talking about. When you say she, you're speaking of the evangelist who is also your
Yes.
friend and who is also your sister-in-law.
Yes.
Okay. And so you have raised this child, and then you come in. Now she's now the child's stepmom, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, there you go. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to impart, just so that
Okay,
everybody can
sorry.
keep up with this.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so she thinks it's weird that you're asking these questions, and she thinks that it's weird that you are treating your brother-in-law as if he is your natural brother, right?
Yes.
Okay. I personally don't think that that's strange at all. I feel like that's one of the problems with a lot of marriages and why there is so much breakdown and probably even divorce is because we don't take like the whole relationship when you're married into a family. I don't think we take it seriously enough, and we do that in law thing instead of welcoming people the way that they should. My sister was married. She was married to, I call him my brother. I don't have a natural brother, but he is my brother. And they're divorced now, but that's still my brother because when they got
Mm-hmm.
married, he became my brother, and I've always treated him, like he is my brother. Um, but anyways, I just thought that that was really odd that especially in a ministry where you have so many leaders who are called to, like, you got what, three of the fivefold ministry in operation, and I'm just hearing so many things that makes me question the positions that they were holding in the church. But anyways, go ahead and tell us a little bit more about what happened with that situation with because that would have been your nephew, with your nephew
Yes.
and your former friend, evangelist, and sister-in-law.
Yeah. So, she felt like she was like, you're asking stuff, personal things about my son. And I'm like, okay, let's back up a little bit. I said, you just came into his life in June. That was maybe September when that happened. Matter of fact, it was after my party. And I'm like, I raised him. I met him when he was 6 months old. And then after me and the ex husband got married, we moved into the mother in law's house to help with his sick father. And when the ex brother in law's fiance died, they came to stay at the house. Now, I don't have any children. So normally I'm going to gravitate towards this baby. And me and the mother-in-law were switching out, duties, with him. And sometimes I put him to bed. I mean, I was basically, he had two mothers. And then I introduced you to my brother, my ex-brother-in-law. And now you're telling me that I'm being basically nosy about a child that I helped raise. And so when that happened, um, that's when the friendship started to break down. Because at that point, I was totally offended because I felt like you don't have the right to tell me what I can ask about a child that I helped raise that you just met. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but that was my baby, and I get that you married him. That's fine. But I'm asking about his speech development. I'm asking what he's learning in school. I mean, those are normal questions of an auntie that's concerned. And she didn't like that. And so that's when the friendship really started to break down.
Well, I agree with you, and I think that it's even more strange that she has an issue with you inquiring about a baby, like you said, that you have to raise, who was in your family and in your life before hers, but she's the same person who asked you to be a godmother to her child, who is not. I mean, I just, yeah, that just blows me away. I don't understand that. You would think that
Yeah.
she would welcome you in helping you to come in and help to raise this child, whom she doesn't know much about, because she has just come into his life and you have stepped in and been, like you said, like a mom to him. And so I think that is kind of strange. Okay, so now we can go back and we can pinpoint where they're at this point. Now you have been at least offended at least 3 times. So we have the birthday thing where they're calling around, and now it's your family and the your leadership, which they're all kind of meshed together now. So now you one big family pretty much. Okay, so you have that issue. Then you have the issue with the what was the second thing that we talked about? There's the baby with the baby, and then what was the other one?
The licensing.
The licensing, the ministerial licensing. Okay, so you have these three offenses that have occurred already. Okay, and so now tell us at this point, how are you feeling with this ministry and even staying connected with the ministry? Next time on Coming Out of the Hedges.
But at that point, the ex-husband, he was playing the drums. So then he came out of his shell and started coming to church. So he was hesitant about leaving. Now, during this time, I started seeing a lot of strange things going on in the ministry.
Are you enjoying this conversation? If so, you won't want to miss what's next.